Yes, sir. What is up to my Auburn family? It's a Friday night, guys, and we have a lot to talk about. Don't normally go live on Friday nights, but man, things are popping off in the Auburn football world. So we got to get in here and talk about it. Also, as a lot of you guys that are listening to the show every week know, I started a new job this week, so I do apologize for not having the content out that I normally have. We've only had like 1 or 2 episodes up this week. Still been able to put the member pods up, but just between the new job and Thanksgiving and all that, I haven't, and this is a big week. I really wanted to be able to get more content out. Just haven't. So my apologies for that. Also, please excuse these stupid, goofy looking headphones tonight. The ones that I usually use, they didn't work. So I had to scramble, ran over to the neighbors. His kid had an extra set that he uses for video gaming. And I just had to pop these on because we got to get in here and make this happen. So I know I look a little silly on your screen and just overlook that. The main thing is the discussion. And the topic of discussion tonight was supposed to be Iron Bowl preview. I haven't even given a prediction this week. I haven't talked about the most important football game in the state of Alabama. And that was the plan, was to come on and preview the Iron Bowl. I had all Alabama statistics ready. I was ready to roll to tell y'all why Auburn can put up a fight. But man, oh man, checked my phone at lunch and I had some text and some DMs and things were happening. So as you guys following here, smash that thumbs up button. If it's your first time and you're not subbed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Let me know in the chat where you're watching from and let's get right into it. So we did a member pod Wednesday night, as we've been doing, kind of discussing the updates on what everybody wants to talk about, the Auburn football coaching search. And I kind of ended the show by saying all signs point to John Sumrall. It feels like it's kind of a done deal. Those were the things that we were hearing. And I know that every Auburn media outlet has kind of been putting that out there as well, because that's what everybody was hearing. That's the reality, is that it was sounding like John Sumrall was locked up, that this thing was inked up. And then you even heard like already talking to Buster Faulkner to come in and OC and retaining DJ Durkin as DC and all this kind of stuff. So not only was it, hey, Sumrall is going to be the guy, but also we were already talking about like putting together a staff. So we're several steps down the road, it felt like. And then On 3 post today that Florida is out of the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes. And we all thought that Lane leaving Ole Miss, there was this whole narrative going around, mainly from Oxford, that John Sumrall actually preferred Ole Miss over Auburn. He was waiting for that to be the job to open up, and he was going to go to Ole Miss. That was the only really other school outside of Auburn we had heard. You kind of seen Sumrall thrown around, but that was kind of the main vibe. That was the main narrative that was going out there. And what I was hearing and what a lot of Auburn people were hearing was that Sumrall still favored Auburn over Ole Miss, but that there would be interest in Ole Miss. Like, you would have to listen, right? I mean, they're going to make the playoffs this year, most likely. Like, you got to listen to them. And he did coach there before, so he was going to listen to Ole Miss. But you kind of just feel like if it comes down to it, and I've been saying this during this whole process, if he was a recruit and the hats were on the table, do you want to coach at Ole Miss or do you want to coach at Auburn? If he picked Ole Miss, then he picked Ole Miss, whatever. But, like, I just would have a hard time seeing John Sumrall pick Ole Miss over Auburn. Well, Lane Kiffin just tells Florida, I'm not really, I'm not going to come there. I'm out. And shortly after that, you see reports start flying that Florida has zeroed in on John Sumrall to the point to where they feel good about it. And I'm like, whoa, Auburn felt good about it. So what happened? Friend of the show, Charlie 5, Kyle Rush over at the barn. He made a post, and I did text back and forth with him a little bit to kind of clarify some of this stuff. And he wanted to join the show tonight, but the timing just doesn't work out. But we'll definitely have him on sometime soon. But Charlie says, and this is a post that he put on the barn. He said, I've seen all the updates. I've made a lot of calls. I'm going to try and give the best update I can without this turning into a novel. Florida is a real threat. Terms were agreed upon initially seem to be an issue at the last hour. Things like money and, honestly, DJ Durkin. This is a very complex situation, and the answer is not always easy as hire the guy and give him the keys. What makes it complex is Auburn has never been in a position with a top 10 coordinator in college football and a top 10 roster in college football. Usually when you make a hire, the wheels are off, and that's just not the case here. Cohen is weighing the value of everything, and it may very well end up being not worth blowing up everything and riding with Durkin, keeping the roster intact, and having a huge salary pool for assistants and coordinators. He then adds, I don't think it's over with Sumrall. So, and that's kind of, and then I know that there are reports from the On3 side as well. Let me go through those just to make sure I don't misquote anything that those guys have said over there. Sources indicate strong. This is according to Justin Hokanson over at Auburn On3's website. Sources indicate strongly that things are now trending away from Auburn right now. If Auburn wants to salvage the situation, it will take John Cohen making it happen. Nothing is final, but right now things are on shaky ground in terms of Auburn and Sumrall. Boy, what a shift, guys. What a shift in 24 to 48 hours. So there's a lot to digest there for sure. And what I'm not going to do tonight is I'm not going to get on here and freak out. I'm not going to get on here and show a bunch of emotion about the situation because it's simply not final. And this is the thing that we have talked about, and I've heard every other Auburn podcast talk about as well. Sure, John Sumrall was the leader. He's a candidate. That's the name we're all hearing. But until it gets across the finish line, nothing is really guaranteed. And longtime Auburn fans, you were probably pretty nervous when it just felt like it was going to be John Sumrall because it was so obvious that it was going to be Sumrall or that he was the lead candidate that you just kind of felt like, is Auburn going to actually just say, that's my guy? It be like kind of public knowledge that he's the guy, and then Auburn lands it and pulls it off. That would be very opposite. That would be very, that's not what we've seen from Auburn, right? JABA is the acronym used. JABA is the acronym earned for Auburn football really over the past decade or so. So it just felt too clean. It just felt too good. And right here at the 11th hour, the weekend that it was supposed to be happening, or that you felt like it was going to happen, here we are, really having no idea. Y'all are saying no sound? Are you guys not able to hear me? Let me know in the chat if you're not able to hear me. I'll post it here. All right. So Teresa can hear me. Okay, so everybody else can hear me. Chris, it might be something with you, bud. Okay, they'll say he's trolling. I got you. All right, so yeah, I've had audio issues the last couple of days. Okay, so good deal. I'm glad we got that out the way. Chris is a troll, so we will put him in timeout. All right, can't be messing up the show, Chris. All right, so let's talk about it, guys. How are we feeling? How are we feeling? Am I allowed to be honest on here? Absolutely. Everybody's allowed to be honest. Everybody's allowed to share their thoughts. I definitely want to hear it. Again, I'm just going to kind of walk through the scenarios in like a neutral stance tonight because there's so much that could happen. We see how crazy these SEC coaching searches are. We didn't have podcasts back in the day when Tommy Tuberville came to Auburn. But if we did, I'm sure there would have been a bunch of Auburn podcasts saying Auburn lost their guy whenever Tuberville said, I'm only leaving Oxford in a pine box. Like when Tuberville said that, if I had a show, I would have came on here and been like, well, that's probably it, right? He said he ain't leaving unless he's dead. And then turns out he came to Auburn. So you just don't know, man. These things are so crazy. And that's why I've tried my best to kind of ride the fence and do the neutral thing. That's also why even whenever they hire who they hire. I'm going to take a very neutral approach, a very wait and see approach, because there are hires all the time that you think are going to work that don't. There are hires that you think are going to fail that work. It's really not a perfect science. So I will say this is the route that I'm going to take tonight. And then I'm going to get to some of you guys' comments, but there's a couple of things that I just want to talk through here. I've never come on here and said John Sumrall is a home run. Auburn has to hire him. I like John Sumrall. I think he's a good candidate. I have said that there is going to be an SEC team, obviously, right, that's going to hire John Sumrall. So I think he's a good candidate. Whether he actually becomes a good head coach, whether he's actually that guy, I don't know. And there's really no way of knowing. And this is the part that frustrates me with some of the fan conversation. Man, sometimes, guys, we just have to admit what we don't know. Nick Saban got his first shot sometime, right? It's not like he just went to LSU and just went to Bama and everyone knew he was going to be great. Somebody had to make that initial hire. Georgia with Kirby Smart. He had never been a head coach before, ever. He is now the best coach in the game. He had only been a DC. He had never proven himself as a head coach. And now look at Georgia. Now look at Kirby Smart. So people in the comments saying, DJ's going to suck, or DJ's going to crush it, or Sumrall's going to suck, or Sumrall's going to crush it. That's your opinion. And I appreciate you sharing it. I want to hear from you. But if you're honest with yourself, you don't really know. So that's why, in terms of, I want to be very clear. I'm taking a very much wait and see approach in terms of whoever they hire and what the result will be. If they hire John Sumrall, if they hire DJ Durkin, I'm not going to come on here. Hell, if they hire Nick Saban, I'm not going to come on here and be like, yep, that's going to work, or nope, that's going to fail. Because there's no home runs in this thing, man. There's none. So some of the vitriol, some of the poison, it's like and I get it. You're passionate and you want to see Auburn win. But like some of this stuff, it's like, come on, guys. Come on. This is not, I think we can all acknowledge this is not an easy thing to do. Like getting head coach right. So I'm going to lay all that groundwork out before I say what I'm about to say, because I don't want anybody to think I'm a pro DJ guy or a pro Sumrall guy or anything like that. And I'm sure if you're following my Twitter feed, you probably think that I'm against DJ Durkin. That's not it. And let me clarify the points that I want to make here. Here's where I'm at with this. Let's rewind. To Lane Kiffin 3 years ago. All the reports are, and we know now, years later, that Lane Kiffin was who Auburn initially wanted. They said Hugh Freeze was the guy. We know he was option B. Lane backs out in the 11th hour. Was it really because of the video his daughter made? Was it something that happened in the negotiations? We'll never really know for sure. He says it was a video his daughter made. Some people at Auburn would say something different. The ultimate result of it is, this is where I'm at with the football, right? I say this all the time. I get sick of discussing the details of losses. Who gives a shit you lost? I get tired of the details of losing. Doesn't matter, you lost the game. Who cares about the details anymore? That's kind of where I'm at with this. I have never campaigned for anybody to be the head coach at Auburn. I've always said, let John Cohen handle it, and then I'll judge the results. But if you go back to Lane Kiffin, that was clearly option A. And you missed. You weren't able to land the guy that you circled to be the head coach. Now, what did Lane Kiffin do in those 3 years after you missed? Successful, correct? He's been very successful. What did Hugh Freeze do? Obviously, you fired him. So you missed. You had the top candidate in Lane Kiffin, and you missed. And the guy you had to settle for didn't work out. So that's 0 for 1. That's 0 for 1. If John Sumrall has been the top candidate for Auburn all along, to the point to where the rumors were, not even rumors, I know for a fact that behind the scenes, this thing was as close as can be, other than just getting the paper signed, because the timing was you can't sign the paper yet. And that's been reported everywhere, right? Y'all all saw it. What Auburn media outlet didn't say over the past 5 or 6 days, this is as close as it could be? Hell, go outside of Auburn. Josh Pate at Late Kick said Auburn's really close to making a hire here. He was talking about Sumrall. So if you missed on the first guy, and then John Sumrall was on, now you're 3 years later, this is your second guy, okay, and you miss on him, what does that tell us about John Cohen? Because history says, let's go back to Tuberville, history says Auburn should be the pick over Ole Miss. And again, Ole Miss is they've definitely improved. They definitely have got their ducks in a row with the NIL, with the Grove Collective and all that, for sure. They've done a great job. Not just Lane Kiffin. They're where they are because of Lane. But their administration has done a good job of getting serious about football in this NIL era. They wouldn't be primed for a playoff spot without Lane Kiffin, but they also wouldn't be ready for a playoff spot if it wasn't for their administration going all in. So, that's a better job than it was pre-NIL era. All that being said, Auburn still, if it really wants a guy over Ole Miss, they should be able to get him. That didn't happen with Lane Kiffin. And again, we have history to say with Tommy Tuberville, Auburn can get guys from Ole Miss if they want them. But John Cohen wasn't able to pull it off. Now, if he had John Sumrall circled as his number one, it doesn't matter what you think about it. It doesn't matter what I think about it. I'm projecting long-term here. If John Cohen thought that John Sumrall was the guy, that was his guy, and he wasn't able to pull it off again, whether you think it's a good thing or not, whether you think, it's a blessing in disguise because you don't believe in Sumrall, that's fine. But can we all admit it would be concerning that John Sumrall has had multiple cycles now where he hasn't landed his top candidate? I think it's concerning if it plays out that way. Again, nothing's definite here. We're just getting on here and discussing the reports that are out there from On3, that are out there from our guy C5 at the barn, that are out there from Florida outlets, right? We're just discussing the reports. This thing he could very well be introduced as Auburn's head coach on Monday. Could be announced on Sunday. That very well could still happen. But the point I'm making is, whether you think John Sumrall is a good hire or not, whether you thought Lane Kiffin would be a good hire for Auburn or not, the fact remains that those were John Cohen's first choices. And if he doesn't get Sumrall, then he just went 0 for 2. What does that mean for Auburn moving forward? I think that's a fair question to ask. Something I thought about today, and I'm going to get to some of you guys' comments. Do y'all know the last coach that Auburn hired hired away from a Power 4 program that had a winning record? It was Tommy Tuberville. Brian Harsin had a winning record, but that was at Boise State. Gus Malzahn had been the coach for 1 year at Arkansas State. That's not a P4 program. You should always be able to get a guy from Arkansas State to Auburn. Boise State's not a P4 program. Yes, Harsin had a great record, but definitely unproven, right? Gene Sizik was at a P4 program, and he went 5-19. Hugh Freeze, you hired him away from Liberty. He had a winning record at Liberty, but you hired him away from Liberty. That's not a Power 4 program. So it's time to kind of ask some questions here about the coaches that Auburn's getting. You got a guy that was 5-19 at Iowa State, and then everybody else has been guys from the group of 4 or group of 5, whatever it is, non-P4 programs, right? Am I missing anybody? Hugh, Harsin, Gus, Gene, Tubbs. So, yeah. And even if it's Sumrall, right? Even if it's Sumrall, he's still never been a P4 coach. So whether it's Sumrall or DJ, and then DJ has been a P4 coach, but you're not hiring him away. The point I'm making is it's been a long time since Auburn saw a coach being successful at another Power 4 program and hired that guy away from Auburn or away from that school and got him to Auburn. Why is that? And I just kind of had that thought today, and I got to kind of work through that some more. Big Homie Lander says, is it time to ask about the attractiveness of the Auburn job? Let's see how this whole process plays out, buddy. Let's see how it plays out. But if it does, then if Auburn doesn't get their top guy again, there's a large sample size here to ask. Auburn's not really getting top kid, and this is a cycle where there's a lot of jobs open, and I understand all that. But if we just look over the vast portion of history here, I think that's very telling. I do. That Auburn has to go down to the group of 5 level and hope that guy can hit, or they have to promote an assistant, or go and this is the thing too. I said this. That's what I'm saying. Either way, with this one, unless there's a surprise guy, whether it be DJ or John Sumrall, that's going to continue, William. That's what I'm saying. So there's a discussion here that should probably be had about what exactly is it about Auburn to where they're not going and getting big name guys. And if Sumrall ends up picking another school over Auburn and he was Auburn's top choice, I think we need to have some discussions about why that is. And I don't have answers to that right now. It's just a thought that kind of hit me today. But I'm like, man, some of these candidates. And there's another thing too that I want to talk about. And I know people are going to take this as shade at DJ Durkin. I think he's one of the best TCs in the country. So I don't care. If you think I'm throwing shade at DJ, you just got to use a little critical thinking and understand what I'm saying here. But if it ends up being DJ Durkin, and I'm not saying he could be successful at Auburn, or I'm not saying that he could fail. The point that I'm making is, who's beating down the door to hire DJ Durkin right now? And it very well, he could. Auburn's so goofy that hiring a guy that had a losing record as a head coach, he might come to Auburn and kill it. Maybe. I'm not saying he wouldn't. But the only school that's talking about hiring DJ Durkin as head coach is Auburn. And I think that's pretty telling. And again, he could crush it at Auburn. But let's talk about Auburn's obsession with its assistants. I've never quite seen a program so obsessed with its assistants. Gene Chizik was the DC of the 04 team. He comes back to be the head coach. Somebody said, I posted that. I said, what is Auburn's weirdly obsessed with its assistant coaches all the time? Somebody commented underneath that post and said, well, 2 of them competed for a national championship and one won it. Yes, Gene Chizik did win a national championship at Auburn. He was fired 2 years later. In my opinion, 1 year does not validate a hire. Gene did a great job in 2010, but he obviously wasn't the long-term answer for Auburn because he lasted 4 years. His last year, he went 3-9. Gus Malzahn, former OC, goes away for a year, has a solid year, good year at Arkansas State. Auburn hires him back. What happened when Gus Malzahn got fired? We had to stop the steal as a fan base. We had to stop the steal. So they tried to hire another assistant. And now here we are. And DJ Durkin. So I just think it's interesting how Auburn really, really falls in love with its assistant head coaches. It's very interesting. The fan base definitely falls in love with assistant coaches. So that's kind of something that I'm going to look at moving forward here, as projecting way out. Anytime Auburn has a head coaching search, you need to look at former assistants and current assistants because the stats show that's probably where Auburn's gonna go. So very, very interesting, man. I'm not claiming to have any of the answers. I'll tell you, there's this big debate that goes on about roster retention, and I posted the episode, what was it, Tuesday, where I said the only thing that matters should be hiring the right head coach. And I stand on that. And a lot of people I see in the chat, you're already taking everything I'm saying the wrong way. You're just going to have to turn your effing brains on, man. Like, the people in the chat right now are thinking I'm slamming DJ Durkin. What are you talking about? I've never said a negative word about him. We're talking through this whole thing, okay? You got to turn your brain on. But this roster retention debate is really, really fascinating to me. You guys that are longtime listeners of the show, have I ever been higher on anybody than Cam Coleman? Has he not been the guy that I'm what recruit coming out of high school have I ever spoke about as highly as Cam Coleman? I think the world of that kid's talent. Remember a month ago when I had to go off on the multiple people in the live chat slamming Cam, saying he wasn't a good football player, he was overrated? I love Cam Coleman. But hear me when I say this. This whole player retention, we got to keep Cam Coleman. I'm going to say what I said on Tuesday's episode. I want to keep Cam Coleman. Auburn should do everything it can, monetarily, whatever, to keep Cam Coleman. But he's got one more year of college football. One. So, although I think player retention is important, where I separate is this idea that player retention is the most important thing. Because again, I present to you Texas A&M, where Jimbo Fisher brought in talent. He crushed it in recruiting. But he wasn't a good coach, and it didn't matter. It didn't matter how good the players were. He wasn't a good football coach. He wasn't one time, but the game passed him by. I think Auburn just kind of went through that with the last guy, right? But what happens? They got the right dude. They got Mike Elko. Mike Elko's the freaking truth, man. So all those talented players left. Guess what they did? It's 2025. You got the portal, man. You got the portal. You go get more. Will they be as good as Cam Coleman? Probably not. But one, you got, and I'm just using him as an example, okay? Because he's the most popular one. Will they be Cam Coleman? No. But that doesn't mean you can't go get another good receiver. And also, here's the thing we just saw. It doesn't matter how good the players are if the coach ain't it. You go get the coach that is the best coach, and then you let the rest of it fall in. Roster retention will work itself out. If you get the right coach, it'll all work out. It will all work out. If you get the right guy, roster retention will work itself out. Because the right coach will put whoever is in on his team in the best position to succeed. We just saw Hugh Freeze not put people in the best position to succeed, despite how good they were. So they can be the best players in the world. Now, on the flip side, look at Kirk Cignetti. They got a solid roster. But it's not up there in terms of blue chip ratio. But Cignetti knows how to use them. So whether it be DJ Durkin, John Sumrall, Eli Drinkwitz, I don't care. Whoever it is. The point that I'm making here is I separate from roster retention as the most important thing. Because in the transfer portal era, you can get more good players. And if you're the right head coach and you know how to put people in position to succeed, and you get assistants that know how to put people in position to succeed, they'll get the best out of whatever players they get. And players run out of eligibility. This is the part about this whole debate that's driving me crazy. Is that players run out of eligibility. We keep saying, I don't, but I keep hearing Auburn is super focused on roster retention. That's the main thing in this hire. These guys got 4 to 5 years max. I want Auburn's next head coach to be here 10 years from now. So, and again, if guys move on, you use the portal. This is the pushback I got on that earlier today in a conversation. Somebody said, yeah, I hear what you're saying, but Auburn's already invested a lot of money into this roster. They don't want to waste the investment. You know what my pushback was? Okay, let's say you're paying player X $1 million and you don't want to lose that investment, but he moves on anyway. Does that not free up $1 million for you to go get another guy? Reinvest that money. Some of the narratives around this is what I'm pushing back on. Some of the, like, if John Cohen's main focus, this is what I'll say. If John Cohen's main focus is making, like, is the hire is about roster retention, then I just think that's the wrong approach. And hear me, please. I know this is very deep, and you know, there's a lot to this. We say this all the time on this show. Everybody wants everything to be black and white. There's a whole lot of gray. The players are not the problem. Hugh Freeze was the problem. There's a lot of good players on this football team. A lot. There's a lot of football players that I want to keep on this football team. I am not of the mindset of Auburn's got to blow it up to be successful. But I'll say what I've been saying since Hugh Freeze got fired. Auburn can blow it up and still be successful. Auburn can retain everybody and be successful. It can fall somewhere in the middle, which is probably what will happen. And if you get the right head coach, it'll all be successful. Did the Bears beat the Eagles today? The Chicago Bears have been a joke. And I know it's the NFL, but colleges get more and more like the NFL. They're still different sports. But the Bears were an absolute joke. They've made some moves, but you can't overhaul a roster in 1 year in the NFL, right? The Bears are 9-3, just beat the 8-4, now 8-4 Eagles by 9 points today. What changed? Go back and watch the Bears Thanksgiving game last year. That was when I think Eberflus was their coach, and he got fired because he just botched the final 2 minutes of the game because he's a clown and he's not a head coach. They went and got Ben Johnson, the OC from the Lions. Look at him. 9-3. One of the best teams in the league this year in terms of record. And they just beat the defending Super Bowl champs today. So 1 year removed from when they fired their last head coach because he could not get the job done. Look at them now. 1 year later, literally 1 year later, they fired Eberflus a year ago, the day after Thanksgiving. Look at them now. It's basically the same roster. I mean, they made some improvements, but they got the right head coach in there, man. So that's the point I'm making, is that you just got to get the guy in there, man. You just got to go get the right guy. All this other stuff about retention and blowing it up and blah, blah, blah. I don't vibe with it. I don't vibe with it. I want to see whoever it is come in and get Auburn back to the level that we all know Auburn can be at. But I think that there are some serious questions that we need to ask here. If John Sumrall was John Cohen's number one candidate and he's not able to get it across the finish line. And we're going to see. We're going to see how it all plays out. It's 6:30 on a Friday night. We got an Iron Bowl in 24 hours, baby. I'm fired up for that. We'll definitely give a score prediction here at the end. I know that Jordan-Hare crowd is going to be lit. But still, man, there's a lot to play out here. So that's why I'm not coming on here, freaking out and all. But we definitely need to have the discussion. So there's a lot of people in here today. We got the chat that is just lively. So I want to get in here and hear from you guys. Zach says, looking bleak, brother, but we are here. Zach, I hear you, bud, but I'll say this. We might wake up tomorrow and there might be something different. And Auburn might name DJ Durkin their next head coach, and he might freaking crush it. So, but I get it, man. I get it. I guess my concern is just about the process. I'm looking at the process and how this is playing out. And I'm like, I want Auburn to be able to get their number one guy and not have to settle down the line, because I want the guy that's running Auburn athletics to be able to go get the guy that he's identified as the number one candidate. And you can't fumble back-to-back hires. So it is interesting. I can't wait to see how it all plays out one way or the other. And what I'm not going to do is and I like Sumrall. I think he's a good candidate for sure. I've said that a million times, but it's not a home run. You definitely would be promoting a group of five guy, hoping it worked out. Auburn went and got Pat Dye back in the day, and the sport's completely different, so this probably isn't even a good analogy. But you went and got Pat Dye from East Carolina. He's one of the greatest coaches of all time at Auburn. Then you got another group of five guy, and Brian Harsin, where complete opposite, right? So these things are not, it's not science, man. It's very difficult to kind of figure all this out and to guess which guy is going to be good and which guy's not. I'm looking at the process. And I'm making judgments off of there. I appreciate the $2 super chat, and let's just see how it goes out, Zach. It ain't looking bleak yet, brother. Okay, maybe it might get there, but let's see. And look, if Auburn names DJ Durkin the head coach, I'm going to say the same thing, guys. I'm going to say, okay, let's see how it plays out. I'm not going to come on here and yeah, that's going to work, or no, that's going to work, because I just don't think we have any idea. Again, my concern would be, why are you not able to get your top guy? You really going to get beat by Ole Miss and in Florida? And I know Florida's a great program, right? But still, you had the leg up. This is supposed to be your guy. If this is John Sumrall's John Cohen's guy, I want to see you get it done. My guy Kyle Stewart watching from Dublin, Ireland. Let's go, baby. Let's go. Let us go, man. That's what's up. Appreciate you tuning in from Dublin. What time is it in Dublin right now, Kyle? Let me know, buddy. I don't think we've ever. And I love that. My family's from Ireland. I don't think we've ever had anybody. I mean, I'm sure you've watched the show before, but I didn't know you were watching from Dublin. That's what's up, man. Appreciate you tuning in, buddy. Let me know in the chat. What time is it over there? Chris says, okay, yeah. They told me you were trolling, bud, so that's why I put you in the little minute timeout. The chat's bumping right now, and there are definitely trolls in there. So yeah, appreciate you clarifying that, Chris. All good, buddy. All good. Sometimes these things happen. All right, so the chat is bumping. I'm trying to get through here and get to as many of these as I can. Let's see. T says, I saw somewhere Florida is offering Sumrall $10 million a year. If that's true, is that too much for a first-time Power 4 head coach? It's a great question, bud. What's the market would be? The market always goes up, right? Coaches are always getting paid more and more and more. So if that's the market for Sumrall, then I would say no. If he's the guy that you want in your Auburn, don't get outbid by Florida. If John Cohen believes that John Sumrall, if that's his number one guy, if that's his top candidate, don't get beat out by the Florida Gators. And again, it's a great school, man. They got a lot of resources. I'm not throwing shade at Florida. But I hope it's not that. I hope it's not because Auburn doesn't want to spend the money. If Auburn thinks he's the guy, then spend the money on him. Spend the money on him. Messmaker disagrees. He says, yes, it's too much. Florida is scrambling after missing on Lane and offering too much. This is the thing, too. Not that Sumrall should necessarily care about this. He's a competitor. But Florida fans, I think the majority of Auburn fans would receive Sumrall a lot better than Florida. And you got to understand, Florida just had a group of five coach and Billy Napier from the state of Louisiana fail. It might be a tough sell to get them on that again. And that's completely understandable. I understand where Florida fans are coming from that. But if they name John Sumrall head coach, I think the reaction from the majority of the Florida fan base would be a little bit different than what the reaction would be from the majority of the Auburn fan base. So just something to consider, John. Just something to consider. I see a lot of people in the chat saying Sumrall is not the guy. Maybe not. I'm certainly not on here saying that he is. Keith says, I do know Sumrall and his ceiling is limitless. So Keith is saying he knows Sumrall. Yeah, that's the thing, man. A lot of people that know Sumrall, a lot of people that I trust that like know ball, they say he's that dude, that he's going to be the guy. So, again, I'm not saying that because I don't know. As I said at the very beginning, I don't have the access to the resources to make that assumption. And I know that's not the best thing for content. This is the time of year where you can be very clickbaitish. You can kind of come out and say opinions, and then you're not really going to be held accountable for them. I don't want to do that. But I hear you, Keith, and we hear this. This has been out there from anybody that knows John Sumrall. They say, like, this guy is the truth. So Zach has another super chat. Let's get to you, my guy. Another $5 says, Zach, in here with these super chats, baby. Says Florida fans might actually burn Gainesville down if they get Sumrall. A lot of them are heated. The duality is fascinating. Yeah, because Zach, actually, I got my coffee here. I got the same coffee shop that I go to every day. Kid there, the kid that gave me my coffee, he's taking online classes for Florida. And we got some Florida campuses here in Pensacola that I think he's probably going to. But he's a big Gator fan, right? And I talked to him about it right before I came on the show. I went and got my coffee. He said his issue is that he was so set on Kiffin. They fired Napier. They were set on Kiffin. They were dead set on Kiffin. And now today they're being told, no, you might have to settle for somebody else. So that's kind of why they're at on that. And then again, on top of that, like they just went through the whole gamble of a group of 5 coach. So they don't want to go back down that path. But the duality is fascinating, Zach, because a lot of Auburn fans have had their mind set on Sumrall. They want Sumrall. And a lot of Florida fans are the complete opposite. So, yeah, it is funny to see 2 SEC fan bases, both that are very passionate and love their school, have very different feelings about who the next head coach of their program should be. But it's all about the situation. And this is the thing too about these coaching searches, man. Billy Napier, you didn't know. He was crushing it at Lafayette. He was crushing it. Somebody was going to give him a shot. He was winning double-digit games every year at Lafayette. Florida wasn't wrong for thinking, hey, that can maybe translate to the SEC. If Florida didn't hire Billy Napier, somebody else where the SEC or the Big Ten was going to. You just don't know. Every GOAT had to get his first shot. So, and sometimes you're the school to where you give him his first shot and bang, it's go. And sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes you find out it's not. William says, you don't know you hired Hugh Freeze, Dustin. No, I don't know that I hired Hugh Freeze. I had no idea that I hired Hugh Freeze. What in the world are you talking about? Let's see. Connie says, I don't think Cohen hired Freeze. Yeah, and Connie, we've discussed this. We've discussed this on a lot of the member shows. I'm kind of with you on that in terms of he was so fresh on the job. I think he kind of got told it's going to be one of these 2 guys, Lane or Hugh. So he was really fresh on the job. But still, it's going to be, Hugh still goes down as his hire. And although I kind of give him a little bit of a pass for that because of all the situations that we've talked about in the past, Connie, still this next one is 100% him. He did the sit down with Mike G. He said as such, right? He said, I am the committee. So whoever he hires, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to wait and see how it plays out. But everyone can agree this is the John Cohen legacy hire. If it hits, good for him. He will be Auburn's AD for a long time, most likely. If it fails, we know how that'll end. C-Mac says, spot on, Dustin. What's up, C-Mac? Digging the jersey and the pick, buddy. For sure, man. It's 6:37. We'll get to a couple more of these comments. Then I do want to kind of touch on the Iron Bowl for sure. There was a couple of comments that I want to get to, but this chat's moving so fast. This is the tough thing about doing the show by yourself. You're trying to monitor the chat. You're trying to do the content. Let's see. But hit that like button, man. Over 300 people in the chat right now. Smash that like button. Gather all the money and go get Lincoln Riley, says Sailor09. Was it Spinnaker Sailor09? Lincoln Riley, huh? Go get Lincoln Riley from USC. That was a name that was, you kind of heard, I wouldn't say anything strong, but that was definitely a name that we heard early in the process kind of being floated out there. What would Lincoln Riley look like with a great DC? I don't know. Would definitely be interesting for sure. It makes you, that whole thing with Lincoln Riley is I don't know the specifics of him leaving Oklahoma. Was he really running from the SEC? It felt that way, but I don't know if in his heart of hearts he was like, I don't want to go in the SEC. I'm going to, USC. I don't know. But if that was the case, then obviously coming to Auburn is not going to be likely. Perry says, Perry Unlikely, what's up, buddy? Longtime supporter of the show, says Brent Key makes $4.5 million for comparison. Sumrall may end up being the real deal, but he hasn't proven himself to be a Timmy. This is a very fair point. Very, very fair point, Perry. What I would say is I look at it to where it ain't my damn money. It ain't my money. I've never cared about buyouts. Why? It's not my money. And you know what? It's so funny. We see these massive buyouts with Jimbo, these massive buyouts with in Auburn terms, like Harsin had a pretty big one that he definitely didn't deserve. You see the massive buyout with LSU and Brian Kelly. There's always the question, where's the money going to come from? But doesn't it always show up? Doesn't it always show up one way or the other? It ain't my money. But that is, yeah, I mean, like, when you compare it to the Brent Key and what he's making, Perry, and then you make a great point of he's not proven enough to make $10 million, I hear you. And I didn't know, I wasn't aware of Brent Key's salary. I definitely didn't think it was close to $10 million. But very, very good point there, man. Thank you for interjecting that into the conversation. JC says, imagine that, AU standing there with an egg on its face and all the candidates gone. No choice but DJ now, Jabba. Didn't expect any different. This is a popular sentiment. JC, I'm not saying you're wrong for having it, bud. I get it. I get the Auburn fans' frustration just with the way the program has gone, right, over the past 4 or 5 years. And it feels like Auburn had kind of zeroed in on their guy. All of a sudden it's not going that way. I feel you. Black Templar 40K4 says Cohen is not leading Auburn in the right direction. Let's see. Let's let it all play out. There's some questions. I definitely have some questions, brother, for sure. Karen says, why does everyone think Durkin is so bad? Everyone liked him 3 weeks ago. I don't think he's bad. I think, Karen, for me personally, right, and you know this being a member and you've listened to all this stuff and you're in the group chat participating all the time, and again, thank you for that. For me, I don't think Durkin is bad. It's more about the process and the optics. Like, are you really missing? Are we really going to miss on the guy that 24, 48 hours ago was supposed to be, locked up? That's kind of where I'm at with. I don't think Durkin's bad. All these coaches are a gamble. I said this at the beginning of the episode. I'm sure a lot of new people have tuned in. All these coaches are a gamble. All of them. John Sumrall is a gamble. DJ Durkin's a gamble. There's not a guy that Auburn's interviewed, and there's not a whole lot of guys out there, period, that aren't gambles. We just got to hope that Auburn eventually hits on one of these. Because majority of the time, the really good coaches are happy where they're at, right? Like, everybody loves Dan Lanning, and I think Dan Lanning is a great coach. Well, he's not leaving Oregon. So it kind of feels like you have to gamble and then hope that you get it right. Look at Tennessee. There was a lot of gambles there. And Josh Heupel wasn't a home run hire. When Tennessee hired Josh Heupel, I was like, all right, he did okay at UCF. And he's crushing it. He's doing a great job. So it's complicated, man. There's really no black and white. William says, "Tell me what's wrong with DJ." Nothing wrong with DJ Durkin. I think we just have to be objective here, right? We have to be objective, and so I'll play positive, negative. I'll do this with you. I want to be careful because I don't want people to think I'm promoting or downing one guy or the other. I really want to keep my content throughout this coaching search that way. But let's play positive, negative real quick. And I've done this a couple times. DJ Durkin, obviously done a great job as a DC at Auburn. Players absolutely love him. Players want to, show up and play hard for him. Everything that we've heard, everything that's been reported is that DJ Durkin has excellent organization skills and that he's done a great job behind the scenes as Auburn's DC. Back when Hugh was still the head coach, the word was, what you started to hear leak out throughout the year, was that if you stood at Auburn's practice and you watched DJ Durkin operate the defense and you watched Hugh Freeze operate the offense, that it was night and day, that it was organized, that it was structured on the defensive side of the ball. So Auburn's, I said this when the coaching search first started, as I said all those things as to why DJ Durkin would be considered because of all those things. And the point that I made was, the analogy I used was, when you're at work, everybody's had a job before where a manager got fired, right? Or a team leader, whatever. And then the company has a choice. Do they go out and hire somebody new? They can get on, whatever job website, and they can look, and do they find a candidate whose resume they like, and they want to bring them in to fill that position? Or did they have a current employee that was crushing it already on their job, and they feel like that employee has done such a good job that employee deserves a promotion to that empty manager role? And I've been at jobs, and I'm sure everybody else has, where you've seen both. Where you've seen them go bring in an outside person. And I'm sure you've seen times where the company's promoted from within. So there's nothing wrong with DJ, man. There's just, and all of those reasons, the organization, the attention to detail, players wanting to play hard for him, being relatable to this current, era of athletes, and being a good football coach like DJ knows ball. All of those things are in the plus. Now he has questions. And again, every candidate has questions. What are the questions around DJ Durkin? He has a losing record as a head coach. Is that what he is? Is that a projection? Does that tell us something? Is there a reason for that? A lot of people that are in a pro DJ say, well, it was at Maryland. Okay. I'll hear you. I hear that. Maryland's like a hard place to win, especially pre-portal, right? Like that's definitely a place where a head coach has to come in and rebuild. But devil's advocate to that is that a good coach still elevates things pretty quickly. So there's just question marks around DJ. He's been a head coach before. It didn't work out. And he hasn't been a head coach since. And again, I say, what other teams outside of Auburn are trying to hire DJ Durkin to be their head coach? So, William, there's nothing wrong with DJ. And I can tell by your comments that you're very, very pro DJ and you think that he should be the guy. And I'm not pushing back on that. I hear you. There's reasons to think, there's reasons to believe what you believe, but there's nothing wrong with DJ Durkin. But what we do on this show is we stay objective. We present all angles. I say it all the time. I don't carry water for Auburn. I don't carry water for people that I like or candidate or anything like that. This is an objective podcast. This is not a sunshine pump. This is not a super negative. When Auburn does good, we'll talk about them doing good. When they lose, we'll talk about them doing bad. And on things like this, we'll stay objective and we'll look at it from all angles, man. These are guys, we get really emotional about this kind of stuff, and I get it. It's the passion, and you want to see Auburn win again. When I list pros and I list cons, some of y'all are only hearing the cons and thinking that it's a shot at him. It's not. It's not. And there's two camps forming. There's the Durkin camp and the Sumrall camp. And they're fighting each other now. And everybody's trying to put me in a camp. I'm not in a camp. Y'all got to stop. It seems like Auburn is a coach retirement hub. Well, I'll say this. Every coach that comes to Auburn and even gets fired, or, I guess fired because no one really just leaves Auburn, up and leaves Auburn. But every coach that's ever got fired from Auburn stays living in Auburn. It's a great place. So, yeah. But these last couple of guys have come to Auburn and got a nice little paycheck to not do a good job. Madden says Durkin should have been the guy. He's got the drive and can let Nix continue to grow as an OC. To be safe, though, I'd go get an assistant to help Nix in the offensive room. This is a popular sentiment, buddy. And I understand it. I understand that Nix has definitely done a good job with the offense in his last 2 weeks. I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got up, what he's got up his sleeve for the Iron Bowl. Let's see. It'll be fun to see. There's so many different ways this could go in just 24 hours or a little over 24 hours. If Auburn wins the Iron Bowl, then like the cries to make DJ head coach are going to be loud, and rightfully so. If Auburn gets thumped, it'll probably go the other direction. And if Auburn puts up like 7 points, which I'm not predicting, but if Auburn has trouble scoring, then all of a sudden the whole love for Derek Nix, I would be interested to see where that goes. But that's not a shot at him. I think he's done a great job. Let's see. Dirk at Maryland isn't a good sample. No, but it's the only sample that we got. So we got to use the data that's available to us. And I'm projecting out. DJ could be very successful at Auburn. What I'm saying is you're right. You're right. I agree with you. Just because he wasn't good at Maryland does not mean he can't be good at Auburn. But if Auburn names him the head coach, and let's just say he doesn't do good, let's say it's bad, people would make the argument, well, you already had a sample size that he wasn't a good head coach. So I hear you, but there's two sides, and I get it, man. People are very, very on their side of the fence on this. Perry says, I believe it's because a guy that doesn't want you telling him shit about who to retain the same way I don't want to be. Yeah. All right. So thank you for bringing this up. Let's talk about this real quick. Is John Sumrall being turned off by how persistent Auburn is and John Cohen is on keeping DJ Durkin as DC? I don't know the answer to that. I read off what Charlie said earlier. Where's my phone? And there's a portion of that kind of speaks on what you said, bud. Let's see. Terms that were agreed upon initially seemed to be an issue at the last hour. Things like money and honestly DJ Durkin. Terms that were agreed upon initially seemed to be an issue, meaning that John Sumrall initially agreed that he would be okay with DJ Durkin being DC. And now that appears to be some kind of hang-up. What's the reason for that? I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm sure we'll find out in the coming days. Is it because he doesn't like the fact that Auburn's pushing an assistant on him so hard? Possibly. And then if Florida's coming in and saying, buddy, you can come here and hire whoever you want. We're giving you $10 million. You get full reign of the program. That's a little bit different than Auburn saying, hey, we kind of want you to hire this guy as your DC. So, now you make a good point, man. You make a good point. And I do think it's interesting that these things were, quote unquote, agreed upon, and then all of a sudden, maybe not. And here's an aspect of this too, and we got to kind of wrap this up. What if it's all just negotiation? Like if you were John Sumrall's agent, and I don't think he's a Jimmy Sexton guy. I've asked a couple people and they said no. So I don't think Jimmy Sexton is his agent. But it would be his agent's job to get the best deal he can for his candidate. If you were the agent for John Sumrall, why wouldn't you do this? I expected this with Ole Miss, actually. I didn't see the Florida thing coming. I thought they were looking at like Fish or Drinkwitz to kind of be their guy if they didn't get Lane. But man, there's just so much. There's so much to this. Iceman, we got a little iron ball says Cam will eat tomorrow. I hope so, brother. I hope so. That'd be great. Tim says Auburn can screw up a wet dream when it comes to hiring a head coach. We'll see, man. We'll see. We will see. Dan Webb says Jabba. Thomas says Jimmy is his agent. Okay. Yeah, I've heard multiple different things. It doesn't really matter who his agent is. His agent could be Donald Duck. It would then be Donald Duck's job to get John Sumrall the best deal possible. If you were his agent and you felt like you pretty much had a deal with Auburn and you knew Auburn wanted him, this would be a smart negotiation tactic to get a little bit more money and maybe some other stuff that you may have wanted. So is it that? I don't know. Brett says Cohen told Sumrall they were considering reconstructing DJ's contract, and it took him by surprise. That's weird. And Brett, you actually sent me something on that. That's weird, in my opinion, because if I'm John Sumrall, like we all knew that DJ Durkin was going to get a raise if he stayed at Auburn. That was kind of, he's been the interim. He's done a good job. He's kind of earned a raise. I'm surprised that Sumrall was surprised that they were giving DJ a raise. I don't know why he would be, but and that's why I don't speak in these certain terms on this kind of stuff, because it could all change. The Huggy Bear, what's in here, baby, says, Maine, that like to viewers ratio is looking a damn shame. Hit that mug. Absolutely, man. Hit that like button. We are about to get out of here in about 4 to 5 minutes because the guys over at the Warp Whore are about to go live. So definitely go over there and check them out. Wildman Golfer says, we have the leverage. Don't increase your offer. Zach says, Dillingham coming in at 11:59. Watch. Okay. Perry says, who the hell is leaking this other than his agent? Yeah, man, it's a dirty game, bro. It's a dirty game. It's not even a dirty game. It's their job. It's their job to get their client the most money, and there's a lot of that going on. There's just a lot of that going on. Donovan says there are even cons with Lane. Thank you, bro. Everyone is so certain that the guy they like is going to be that dude. Guess how many playoff games Lane Kiffin has won? And I think Lane Kiffin is a great coach. I think he's a very, very good coach. I think he's one of the best offensive minds in the sport of football. Guess how many playoff games Lane Kiffin's won? It's not like he's some multiple-time playoff winning head coach. And the way people move their goalposts for these candidates is so funny. I had somebody in my comments a couple weeks ago when I said that, like, I mentioned James Franklin, just mentioned him, as a possibility when this all first started. This commenter just laid into Franklin. He ain't this, he ain't that. Auburn's got to hire Lane Kiffin or they ain't serious. And I'm thinking to myself, wasn't James Franklin just a game away from the national championship and Lane Kiffin's never even made the playoff? Like, the way the logic that is used for some of these things, I can't vibe with it, man. There's a lot of mental gymnastics that go into some of this. Perry says, after 16 years of failure, you have to be a badass, a savage, or a fool to go to UF, but more power to you. I mean, UF's a great school, man. They got great resources, but so does Auburn. So that hire is not going to go over well with the Florida fans, and you can check their Twitters. Like, they don't even like the idea. Is it one of the things where Florida's floating the idea? Florida's floating it to see, what if Lane Kiffin wakes up tomorrow and stays at Ole Miss? Does LSU make a push for John Sumrall? A lot of people initially said they won't do that because he's at Tulane. It would be a bad look for LSU to steal Tulane's coach. But I've also seen reports today saying that LSU that would be a possibility if they don't get Lane Kiffin. All right, let's get to a couple more of these. Dan, I'm with you, man. After retention, hire the right head coach. And, like, those things can go hand in hand. Like, you can hire the right head coach and still retain a big portion of the roster. But I'm with you, man. At the end of the day, just hire the right head coach. This will all work itself out. Robert says Eric Morris is better than all those P4 guys. That is the coach at North Texas. That is agreed to go to Arkansas, correct? Let's see. Name John Sumrall's big victories. It says electric swag. I mean, he's been at Troy and Tulane, so I'm not, there's probably not too many. And that's the question mark thing. That's the question mark, electric swag. It's a projection. Again, there's not a candidate that's been floated for the Auburn job that there's not questions about. Every candidate has questions. There's no for sure home run. This is why I've said from the beginning that it's really the people that have access to the information. John Cohen. That's the guy we need to be looking at. I'm not going to pretend to know that this guy's going to be the guy or that. That's just, I'm not with that. If DJ is a guy, does Nick stay as OC? Fascinating, Brett. We've heard about Auburn having these other conversations with OCs, right? You've heard the Faulkner from Georgia Tech and all that. So, like, was that if Sumrall was here, was that, hey, whether it's DJ or Sumrall, do you want to come be the OC? I don't have the answer to that. Auburn's talked to multiple OCs. That was what's been reported over these last couple of weeks. So I don't know. Gregory says Bama has no idea what the offense will look like tomorrow. Shadow banned. Yeah, I don't think they do. If you were Auburn, you should definitely pull something new. Let's see. Not very well organized defensively when Vanderbilt won. Yeah, that was definitely the worst one of the year. And kind of to the point of like needing a CEO, because DJ Durkin has said himself that since he's become the interim head coach, he hasn't been able to focus on DC as much, and some things have slipped through the cracks that normally wouldn't. And definitely that first week versus Vanderbilt, he said as much versus Vanderbilt. So I think the one thing we have learned, the one thing that I will get on a hill and die on in this coaching search is the next guy cannot call plays defensively or offensively and run Auburn. That definitely appears to be too much. I just think in the current age of college football, you definitely need a CEO. When we had C5 on a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about maybe even in the future there being a college football team that hires an assistant NFL GM to be the head coach just because of the direction it's going and really focusing on getting the right coordinators and stuff. College football is fundamentally changing right underneath our feet. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how all this plays out over time. Tim says, if Cohen screws us up, he needs to go along with the trash hire he made. Yeah, if Cohen does mess us up, if this hire doesn't work out, don't worry, Tim. He will be gone. The main function of an SEC football coach or SEC athletic director is to hire a head football coach. If it doesn't work out, those ADs go. On to a more important question. What is your coffee? Man. I gotta get that mocha, dude. I'm a chocolate guy. I gotta get that large mocha with 2 extra shots of espresso. Robert says, I hope Dillingham is a secret, like 2 extra shots, not just like put 2 more in that thing. Robert says, I hope Dillingham is a secret candidate or Rhett. Appreciate that. Hey man. Dillingham, Rhett Lashley, two solid candidates. Again, questions about both of those guys. There's pros and cons to both of those guys. All right, let's get a couple more of these, then we got to get out of here. Make sure you guys head over to the War Report and check those guys out. They're about to go live. Give Lane $30 million a year. Screw it. My issue with Lane is just like, let's say he goes to LSU. In 3 years, is he not going to be like looking at the New Orleans Saints? You know what I'm saying? Like Lane feels like that guy that's always going to be kind of looking for the next move. Marshall says Sumrall 2 Sun Belt championships with Troy and leading a team to a stunning upset victory at LSU. Also leading Troy to back-to-back bowl victories and a national ranking. Yeah, his record at that level has been super impressive. The big question is, does it translate? Someone's going to hire John Sumrall, right? Like this cycle, matter of fact. And we're going to find out if it does translate or if it doesn't. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up. We're going to get out of here. Great crowd tonight. Please smash that thumbs up button. Sub to the channel if you have not done that yet. We got a busy weekend. We got Iron Bowl tomorrow. And then Sunday is going to be most likely going to be a very, very wild day. We might have to do a reaction show, and then we might to the game like we always do, 9 a.m. on Sunday. And then we might even have to pop back on and do another podcast about head coach. Electric Swag saying Sumrall did not beat LSU. Yeah, I was reading off the comment there. So, all right, I think that's going to wrap it up for this show, man. Good stuff. If you're listening over on audio, turn on the automatic downloads. Leave a 5-star review over there. I want to thank each and every one of y'all for tuning in, and we'll find out. We're going to find out. So stay locked in. We will be here to cover all of it, man. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I look forward. This is the eve of the Iron Bowl. I look forward in the future about being able to talk about the Iron Bowl itself and not head coaching searches. Auburn plays the Iron Bowl tomorrow, and right now, and rightfully so, I'll knock my mic over here. And rightfully so, we're much more focused on other things. I don't even want to say rightfully so, but it's the nature of it. Like if you don't know who the head coach is going to be, but he's about to get named, that's going to trump one single game because that's the future of the program. I look forward to in the future just being able to talk about the Iron Bowl on Iron Bowl week. So we're going to know here in the next 2, 3, 4 days who Auburn's next head coach will be. And we'll be here to cover all of it, man. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be back here Sunday morning, 9 a.m. If anything pops off, if we find out anything for our members, we will definitely load in and let you guys know. I love you. I appreciate each and every one of you. Look, I get it. We're all super emotional. We all love our Auburn Tigers. We all want to see Auburn win. Some of y'all like Sumrall. Some of y'all like DJ. I get it, man. Me personally, I'm not telling anybody else how to think or feel. I'm going to let this all play out. We'll see how it all lands, and we'll be here to cover all of it. Word Damn Eagle, let's go win a freaking Iron Bowl, man. Let's go win an Iron Bowl. Beat Bama. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we all need to worry about tomorrow. We'll worry about head coach on Sunday. Y'all smash that thumb button on the way out. War Damn Eagle.